In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I am thankful to Allah for His mercy and His blessings, giving us His prophets and messengers, Moses with the Torah, Jesus with the Gospel, Muhammad ibn Abdullah with the Holy Quran. I can never thank Allah enough for His intervention in our affairs, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi and teacher of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I come to you as a student and representative of their anointed servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet all of you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone feeling? All praise is due to Allah. Beloved, I wanted to open with just a few words from the Holy Quran, from Surah 35, which is called El-Fatir, the Originator. That is one of the 99 attributes of Allah. He is the originator. Praise be to Allah, the originator of the heavens and the earth, maker of angels, messengers, flying on wings 2 and 3 and 4. He increases in creation what He pleases. Surely Allah is possessor of power over all things. Whatever Allah grants to men of His mercy, there is none to withhold His mercy. And what He withholds, none can grant thereafter. He is the mighty, the wise. O men, call to mind the favor of Allah to you. Is there any creator besides Allah who provides for you from the heaven and the earth? There is no God but He. How then are you turned away? And this is in harmony, though we didn't discuss it, with what Minister Patrick just finished telling us, that no matter what happens to you, no matter what you face, no matter what you go through, no matter what you encounter, the one thing that cannot be taken from you is that which Allah has granted you. So never, and this is a daily battle, never allow anyone or anything to overpower your faith and your knowledge that you are a child of Allah God, and that there's nothing you could want, nothing you desire to do, nothing you desire to have that you cannot have if you establish an intimate relationship with Him. And so 2 weeks ago, I gave a lecture entitled Burnout and How to Overcome It. And be it the will of Allah, that tape will be available in the next week or so. Now, last week, we showed you a videotape, as was referred to, of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan speaking at Mosque Mariam. And this week, I would like to continue in the vein that I started 2 weeks ago. And today's lecture is called, Can a Muslim Worry? How to Stop Tormenting Yourself. And of course, when I say Muslim, that includes Christian, Jew, Buddhist, agnostic, nationalist, whatever we call ourselves, our nature is to desire to submit to do the will of the one God. And that's what Muslim means. It's an Arabic word that means one who desires to submit to God. And I can only think that people that come to such a meeting as this are desirous of doing that. Matthew 6:25, Jesus is speaking. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Now, Minister Ava Muhammad wrote in a recent edition of the Final Call newspaper these words: divine prophecy is always fulfilled progressively. So also is our grasp of it. Unless, of course, we were previously unaware that a prophecy had been fulfilled or was coming near the final stage of its accomplishment. In that case, in other words, if we're completely ignorant to or unaware that a prophecy exists, which of course if we don't study scripture, we don't know that there is a prophecy. So we have no way of measuring the progress of its fulfillment. So if we don't know, we don't hear it, we don't read it, we don't see signs of it, then he's saying when it happens, and these are his words, its manifestation can shock us, surprise us. The question, he writes then, becomes how do we react to the will of Allah of which we had been ignorant? In other words, now the prophecy we didn't even know existed, or if we read it to be applicable to somebody else and not us. Then when it happens in our face, well, now it's here, so how do we react to it since now we know it's God's will? Allah's plan, he continues, is comprehensive. You've heard of comprehensive insurance plans? In other words, that's when they cover a multitude of problems. So he writes, Allah's plan is comprehensive. We are such babies in his wisdom. We are likely to miss the magnificence of the fulfillment of aspects of that plan, even when it is being manifested right in our face. Worse, we may misunderstand and reject it and hurt ourselves and perhaps others too. An example of that, which I will not go into this afternoon in depth, is the Million Man March. The Million Man March was the fulfillment of divine prophecy. The Revelator wrote of it. But because we did not connect that prophecy with anything black people do, and the scholars knew it but would not share it. And if you look in the book of Matthew, when you read of the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, parenthesis, Washington, D.C., and it says the whole city stirred and asked, who is this? And the crowd answered the question, this is Jesus of Nazareth. Now, if the crowd answered the question, who was asking the question? The question was being asked by the leadership who abandoned the city that day. The U.S. government shut down. And it became a day of atonement. Minister Farrakhan, even as Jesus went in the temples, when he went into Jerusalem, the same event, and turned over the money changers' tables, so the minister led black men into the seat of capitalism and shut down money making and made it a day of prayer and atonement. And I could go into that more, but I got a little booklet coming out Savior's Day. And it's in there. That's why it's on my mind, because I was at the computer this morning, and I'm telling you, we're living this thing. And beloved, when you look at the mathematical probability of even being alive, let alone, as they say, being with the man. It just gets too deep. But I didn't come here to talk about that. I came here to talk about worry and how to eradicate it, which is about that. Because when you're cognizant or aware of how favored you are, that already begins to ease up worry. In the minister's video, as Minister Patrick was just talking about last Sunday, and the minister's victory over death. And when Brother Darius and I were blessed to go out to the farm and sit with him a couple of months ago, he is still himself almost in a state of shock and surprise over it being reported to him by his family and those with him when he almost left us, that he thanked Allah for his life. Most people in pain and agony like that, they're crying out for relief from the pain. They may be cursing somebody. They may be demanding, give me something to ease this, get away from me. And he wasn't saying, why me? 40 years of a clean diet, giving my life to God. He didn't ask all that. He thanked Allah for his life and just allowing him to live and accept the message. Now, but the big thing, if you saw the video last week, you remember that he stressed to us more than anything he said is that there's no God but Allah. And some of us are personality driven. And he said that his absence became a trial. He said that when he got sick, a lot of us got sick. And some of us are spooky. And it actually threatened our belief system. The minister is sick, but there is no God but Allah. Now, we needed to hear that from him, that there's no God from Allah again. Not like it hasn't been said to us for the last 60 years, but we needed that because we are today, even now, for the most part, polytheists, idolaters, image worshipers, celebrity lovers, despite what we profess. I, like you, if Janet Jackson walked in here, would go berserk. We all know, you wouldn't just sit there, how you doing? Something like Janet. And keep, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, guess who's here? Oh my God, that's Jesus. Oh, Denzel Washington. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, one of the Falcons is here. One of the Hawks is here. One of the Balls. Oh, Jermaine Dupri is in the airport getting checked. Oh, he's going through the middle. Hold it, wait, look. There's Hulk Hogan. Oh. I'm just laughing, but I wish I could have a hidden camera. I'm telling on myself. I was in Detroit, Michigan in September. I grew up in the Motown era. I was in Detroit for a book signing, beautiful event. And some of the believers took my husband and I on a tour of Detroit, and they took us by the Motown Hitsville, USA. And I'm in there, oh man, this is where the Temptations recorded My Girl. Oh, I can still hear David Ruffin, and I'm going totally off in there. Then, as if that weren't enough, somebody runs up and says, Diana Ross is in the building. I said, you are lying to me. Diana Ross is, come on. I mean, what is the probability in my life that she would be here and I'm here? So we stood around and they said she's in here, and somebody yelled out, she's leaving. There she goes. So, I mean, bam, I was like the road runner. I was lifting up and the brothers on security, they were just dying laughing. They thought this was so funny. And I said, Darius, get the camera out. And she was getting in a big, long limousine with her two youngest children. She had brought them to see where she started. Very natural, just some black slacks and sweater. Very beautiful sister, very natural. And it's this little crowd of about a dozen people. And everybody's yelling out, Diana, oh my God. And I said, Diana, turn around. Let us get a picture. You're beautiful. So she spun around. My husband snapped it. But my point being, this is us. Now, we get all excited over an entertainer. How should we respond to one who brings us the express will of Allah? Now, I didn't mean to teach on that either. But my point is, we worry. We are filled with anxiety and insecurity. But you and I cannot accept Allah as the ever-living, self-subsisting, all-knowing, merciful God and still suffer from such feelings of anxiety that many of us do all the time. In giving us this kind of guidance and comfort, telling us, as he did on that speech last week, that there is no God but Allah, and sharing a near-death experience, not from theory, we're talking experience. Once again, Minister Farrakhan is showing or displaying the qualities of one we read about in the Bible, and said if we were there, we would have backed him up, we would have supported him, we would have walked with him and yak the yak. Now, I will read this to you in full from the biblical Jesus. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about life, what you will eat or drink, or your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds flying in the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? Now, worry means to feel uneasy, torment oneself with, or suffer from negative, disturbing thoughts. Now, if you've never had that happen, you can go have a sandwich and come back. But if you've ever felt uneasy or entertained disturbing thoughts, and if you experience this daily or weekly, then we need to look at that. Don't think that's just how life has to be. That's where we have been misled. We have been misled to accept as a normal part of life certain things that are not normal and not natural. They're really an affliction. It's an illness that can be corrected. You and we're not going to be free from trouble. I didn't see where Jesus said anything in this verse that you are not going to have problems. He said, don't worry about it. Now, the first thing we've got to do is face the problem, the difficulty. Know that I do worry. Say this to yourself if this is what you're going through. After you acknowledge that what you are feeling is worry and it's not necessary to be like that, then you have to discover the roots of what makes you feel insecure. Then you're going to have to replace, it's like self-surgery. You have to operate on your own mind. You have to go in your mind and surgically remove the source of, because if you feel anxiety and worry, and we're not really doing it, anxiety is a little different from worry. It's more physical. I mean, it's like a pronounced, you can physically feel your stomach churning, and shakes and things. But I just want to deal with worry today, which is just where we're just constantly disturbed by, oh, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to get this done? I don't have anything to wear. I don't have enough food in the refrigerator. I don't have transportation. I don't have this. How am I going to get this? That's what I'm talking about today. Now, if you worry like that, there is a wound from your past that was inflicted on you, that took from you your natural sense of security that you have being a child of God. You had some kind of experience that left you so traumatized that it made you doubt to this day whether or not you will have enough, be enough, do enough. Do you understand? So you got to go back and search your history and find out. It could have happened as far back as when you were a fetus in your mother's womb, or you could have had a worry-free childhood. Like myself, I had a beautiful childhood. It was when I got out on my own that things went crazy. But it's the same. I don't care if it happened when you were a fetus, when you were 3, when you were 39. You still have to dig it out and deal with it. You have to replace it with the healing power and resources of the Creator. Because we have been made in slavery to believe the falsehood that there's not enough of everything. That's why we worry. We don't realize there's an infinite supply. But slavery, 400 years of being hungry and cold and out of doors and experiencing what it is to run out. And that plagues us as black people to this day. Hardly anybody in this room has no knowledge of having a phone cut off or being evicted from someplace. Or if you haven't, somebody in your family called you and said it just happened to them, or a friend. That is not God's intention. That's my point. He didn't plan for us to go through that. Even when we say it's a trial, that's not even true. He never intended for us to live like this on a daily basis. I can prove that to you in no limit of time. He just gave me the proof. It was from the minister, what he said on the video, when he quoted us from the Quran about being severely tried once or twice a year. And sometimes we will be tried with loss of property. Everybody remember that? Now, let me ask you a question. How can you be tried with the loss of what you do not have? Talk to me. He meant for you and I to live a life of prosperity. And from time to time, he would straighten our subsistence to humble us. But it was never his plan for a person to be born on this earth and from cradle to grave live in poverty. No way. You can't convince me of that. Now, I want to tell you what the scientists tell us of this world are the categories of worry. Because there's types of worry. One type is the disturbing situation that you must find a solution to. See, we have problems that can be put on ice. Then we have problems that got to be solved today. Okay? That's one type of worry. The second type is a disturbing situation which you have no control over. The third type, and that's the one that we have to deal with first, is the type that is not even worthy of much attention and is definitely not qualified to be an object of worry. Now, the first situation you got to solve, I'll give you an example. Survival. If you have a problem of hunger, you can't take 6 months to resolve that. That's got to be dealt with right now. You may go a day or two, but there's a finite time within which food has to be produced, or we're out of here. So food, clothing, shelter, that's why Jesus talked about those things, because he knows these are things human beings have as a concern. So he said, let me get your mind off of that so you can think spiritually. Because why would God make a human being with a brain with infinite capability, and then your life is like a spider or a bear, where you just spend your day scrounging for food like a four-legged animal? It doesn't. Why give you all of this if all you're going to use is the reptilian brain? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Who am I going to mate with? Well, that's what a dog thinks. So he didn't intend for us to even have to give thought to that stuff. We're here to think creatively. Now, secondly, the other one is no control. A loved one dying of a terminal illness. A relative incarcerated. Waiting on your loved one's plane to arrive and it's 5 hours late. That's out of your control. Now the last one is events that we manufacture in our mind to be concerned about, that nobody really has any business caring about. And that's what really takes us out of here, because as the minister said, most of what we're concerned with is what we make up in our mind. You can't resolve a non-reality. How can you solve an illusion? You're a man with a wife at home and you're making up in your mind some scenario about some man going to see her, and it's not even real. How can you resolve it? How can you deal with him and he don't even exist? Now you may say, why are you teaching against worry? Is it a sin? Yeah, it is. What's wrong with worry? I'm not wicked because I worry. Worry is not wicked, but it's no good because it does not change the outcome. See, I'm not saying stop worrying with the promise that if you stop worrying, your relative will not die. I'm saying worrying about it is not going to change the outcome. That's what I'm saying. That robs you of your creative energy, which could be used to make that person's transition from here better. Because it's not helping them, for them to be laying on their deathbed. You're like, oh, Jesus, oh, God, oh, no, what am I going to do? How does that help them? Versus you offering them comfort. Now, worrying about the possibility of some event not only fails to prevent the event, it can actually make it happen. Now, this is some old stuff. We all know this. We just don't do it. But we all know about mind and matter. Because the mind is so powerful, beloved, as you continue to worry on a thing, you start imaging the outcome. Oh, I've got to speak at the press conference. I'm going to mess up. I'm not going to remember what I'm supposed to say. Then you start seeing yourself bumbling and blubbering, falling, and then you go out there and do what you saw yourself doing. Talk to athletes, competitors. The winners see themselves winning. before the big game. They actually fast forward. You on a big NBA team, you see all the women running around. You are bad, baby. You awesome. After the game. They see that. Lose it because it's mine first. 90% of every battle is mental. Even when you see it get physical, it only got physical because somebody's mental power weakened. You should be able to win every battle mentally. And then all you got to do is go in and sweep up. Now, it's like they said the New York Yankees. When the Atlanta Braves went there, this team had an aura. They look at you like, why are you here? There's no way in the realm of possibility or impossibility. Just come on out like, well, whatever. If you just feel like practicing, you are going to lose this. You've already lost this. And if it wasn't you, whoever they sent against us was going to lose. And this is how you have to be. You have to be confident. That doesn't mean you're arrogant, but you're dismissing the power of God when you perceive yourself as a loser. Now, when you worry, the reason it's a sin is because worrying is a manifestation of a lack of faith. See, even if you're waiting on that airplane and it's 5 hours late, I said you don't have any control. I don't have any control. I didn't say no one did. If you have faith in the one who does have control, then you have the posture like Jesus, let not my will, but thine will be done. Because I know you're going to get it here. And if you don't get it here, it is to fulfill a plan that is for the best of all of us. Even if it hurts. But when you spend time seeing yourself as a failure, you will reproduce that image in your performance. We condition ourselves for failure. Classic example is an ulcer. I'm so worried I'm going to get an ulcer. And eventually you do. I saw a woman on television. The whole family of women are having mastectomies, the removal of the breast, because their grandmother died from breast cancer. So they're saying, in order for me not to get it, I'm going to cut off my breast. They don't understand that that's an effect, not a cause. The cancer is something, many cancer patients, of which I have been one. See, cancer is a problem of suppressed grief and anger. And it runs in families. It runs in my family. I come from a family of people who had great ability and nowhere to manifest it because of a racist society. My father was born in 1905. He was 45 years old when I was born. So he grew up in the lynching period, the Great Migration, when black people left the South to escape death. Now there is a migration back, but that's another story. But what I'm saying is the time, as well as his temperament, made him a quiet sort of individual. Very strong, beautiful person, took care of our family. But when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, you didn't talk about things. You whispered. You don't cancer. You didn't say that word. If somebody got a divorce, you didn't know about it. So people had to keep things to themselves. And as a result, now that's something genetic. And you have to study your own family tree to see what are your areas of vulnerability. Now, if you spend, and for example, there's such a thing as being accident prone. That's real. That's not a fictitious condition. There are people who are always falling, always have a broken leg, always ran into somebody's car all the time because they visualize that. They leave the house seeing themselves in a problem, and so they run into one. But if we were to spend the time and energy planning ways to overcome the struggles that we anticipate, if we would envision our success, then our performance will be excellent. We are our own worst enemy because we appear not to have benefited from the presence of prophets and messengers among us, because we don't appear to undergo a change in our condition. Proverbs 23:7 teaches us that the way we think in our heart determines what we do. When you worry about a problem, whether it is real or imaginary, it blocks you from solving the problem. Then worry becomes the problem. I'm going to ask us a question, because I know some of us go through this and have been like this for years. Do you enjoy worrying? For some people, it has an attraction. And that's what we're going to have to take responsibility for this day. Stop taking afflictions as being natural and being the product of God's will and blaming Him. It's God's will. It's God's will. I'm just being tried. No, it's your will. And you are trying yourself. Praise is due to Allah. In truth, some of us feel better when there is a problem, because it distracts us from our goal. And some of us are such what they call worry warts, that if we don't see a problem, we make one. And when you're a worrier, you tend to be worrisome and make a nuisance of yourself. So when you come in the room, you darken the atmosphere rather than brighten it. You almost need to have orange cones around you, because you're an emotional danger zone. We're never going to get there. It ain't going to make it. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to happen. I'll never get well. I'll never lose weight. I'll never have money. I'll always live in this box. You need a big sign that reads negative, self-defeating, incapacitated, and ready to bring you down with me. Keep your distance. But in truth, because we're going to use some actual facts and stats now. I ain't speculating. How can I prove this? Pain gets more attention than pleasure. If a plane crashes, it is the headline. If somebody goes off and shoots everybody, it is the headline. It is in the news and it stays there. If somebody celebrates a 50th wedding anniversary, we don't hear anything about it. Ted and Jane busted up. People Magazine, Entertainment Tonight, USA Today, Atlanta Constitution. Everybody saw. But how many people in this city are celebrating 25 years, 50 years, 75 years of marriage? Who cares? We want to know the dirt. The number one selling type of film. Romance? No. Comedy? No. Family? No. Action with male leads. Action movies. Why? People get shot. People get blown away. People get karate chopped, thrown out of windows. This is exciting. Everybody's cheering. Independence Day. Deep Impact. Armageddon. Titanic. Look at that mammy-jammy go down. That was my favorite part when it turned. Remember when it turned? Perpendicular to everybody. But somebody meeting and loving and kissing and hugging and having children and buying a home and dying in bed. Boring. Tickets. So Eddie Murphy did a movie called Holy Man. Bombed. Very therapeutic for the spirit, but boring. Who wants to see that? We want to see heads fly across the room. We want to see blood spray. That's what we pay for. Because catastrophes are exciting and entertaining to a negative mindset. And apparently that's most people. Now, maybe we like to worry because we are not carrying out God's purpose for us. See, the one thing that's guaranteed to excite you and get you high is knowing what God plans for you as an individual, because everybody is great. Everyone, see, it's not just the celebrities, but he loves us all and sees us all and gives us all the potential to be great. And what will excite you is when you are engaged in the thing that you were born to do. When you are not doing that, you get bored and you become a spectator. So you go and watch somebody else live. Now, so that's why we like to worry. We make up stuff to get into. If we do God's will, we'll get into plenty of stuff. Because whatever he has for you, it's going to be exciting, but it will not be easy. Now, so we worry when we get, when we worry, we get some kind of stimulation from that. The mind is now engaged in something. Locked in on the target. You like radar, looking for a heat-seeking missile. I know trouble is coming. It's just around the corner. It's been 2 days since anything bad happened. I know. So you have how the radar seeks, is looking. And what you look for, you're going to what? Find. Now, immobility is what feeds worry, just as it feeds depression. Depression is a little different from worry. It's equally insidious and devastating. But one of the treatments for worry is activity. We tend, when we get worried, to withdraw. But the way to overcome it is to engage yourself in constructive activity. You know, when we're destructively worried, that means we're the kind of people that we will not let go of a problem no matter what. People can show us a way out and we reject it. It still ain't gonna, they ain't gonna do nothing. You have a problem, somebody says, why don't you take these herbs? You're not still, why? Ain't gonna do nothing. Why don't you stop eating ham? For what? My granddaddy ate ham. Why don't you stop smoking? Maybe that's why you can't breathe. For what? Ain't gonna do nothing. See, no matter what the mind shows is shown, it rejects it. No matter how cheap the trip is, you can't go.
No matter how much you hear about the beauty of the atonement process, I ain't settling my difference with that person. We would rather use our differences with one another to not be productive. But action is the solution. And another part of the solution is to learn as much about these emotions as we can so we can identify them, then rise above them into the thinking of God. Now, as I close, this worry cluster, that's what we're aiming at today, to destroy. And just talking about it, you're putting it under the light. Because no longer will you accept worry as being as much a part of you as an ear. It's an alien emotion. It does not belong there. You don't have to have that. You will have problems, but worry, as Jesus said, don't do it. Because the Father already has you covered. And if you stop worrying, you'll be able to see your way clear to the solution. Now, as I said, this worry cluster, the missile in the brain, fighter planes are armed with missiles. Now, what the pilot does is when he sees an enemy, he'll lock into it and get it in sight before he fires. Because ultimately, the decision to fire is a human decision. Even though the computer has the capability to fire, a decision has to be made to push the appropriate button. It's the same way with your brain. The worry cluster is in a part of your brain where it's on automatic. It can be shut down. The worry cluster is like the heat-seeking missile. It's just made that way. Now, what is this thing? What it is there's something in you that enables you to be aware of that which will threaten your survival. And worry is a misuse of your survival faculty. It's using something for the wrong thing. Now, so this worry cluster locks in on problems, most of them made up, and it won't let go. So now, the worry cluster, it sees the target, which is the problem, real or imagined. It sends a signal to the brain, to the front part of the brain, seeking permission to destroy the problem, meaning solve it. But that front part of the brain, this is where we have trouble. Instead of sending back a green light to eradicate the problem, it analyzes it. Ooh, yeah, this is terrible. Now, the worry cluster is not getting any signal to move. So it sends another alarm, which manifests in you as anxiety. When you have anxiety or physical feelings of fear, that you don't just play that off. You got a problem. You need to sit down and say, wait a minute, I can't walk around with my stomach in knots, drinking Maalox and tripping and palms sweating. That's not normal. You think Methuselah and Noah and the great patriarchs lived to be 900 years old, walking around with their stomach in knots about a flood coming? God said he's going to bring judgment. So what are we worried about? Y2K. Y2K. Oh, my God. $500 billion spent. I wish I had a penny for every $10 that has been spent to make everything Y2K ready. Computer don't care nothing about Y2K. Because when all is said and done, no matter how powerful it is, it follows the direction of a human brain that built it. See, we were focusing on getting our computers ready when we should have been getting our soul ready. the question. Are we mentally and spiritually ready for a new world, a golden era, where the wealth of the planet is redistributed so everyone has a good life? All of us are not egalitarian. We're insecure. We need to feel important. We need to feel better than somebody else. We don't want everybody to have a pretty car and a pretty house. And if we think like that, we're not in accord with God's will. Joy is when you can drive for miles and miles and miles and see nothing but clean, beautiful, manicured landscape land, and everyone is dressed well. That is what is called the hereafter. Because as I told you, that is a myth. This idea that there's not enough of everything. Oh, world population explosion. Too many people. No, there's too much wealth in the hands of too few. There's plenty of space on this planet. Now, beloved, as I close, I'm closing to you. Because you're a beautiful teacher. We're not born worrying. We learn it or we choose it. But as we're finding out in science about many things, cancer, as I mentioned, obesity, heart disease, accident prone, we are all born with genes that make us inclined for or lean away from certain things. So some people have an inclination to be worried. And they actually seek an issue to worry about. And don't feel complete unless you stay happy. Now, we all experience stress. Some of us are integrated. Some of us are organized and structured. Some of us get lost between the kitchen and their living room. We're made a certain way. Some people are confident. Some people are insecure. Some are calm and serene. Others are excited. Some move out quick. Others are slow to respond at the steadier things. But whatever we are not on earth to sit around and say, this is how it is. Well, you curse all the time. I've been like that all my life. My whole family curse. Everybody in the house smoke marijuana. We all eat on this. All of us is 400 pounds. We all ate all day. That's how we are. Can't help it. It's just like that. That very thing, I have those things, yes, we all have things that keep us from us, to be honest. At some point, somebody got up the nerve to come to our face. Poor thing. And told us. Whether it was our mother, father, friend, used to be friends. Now, if somebody finally, God put it in that person to help us come say, listen, you got that. Now, maybe they didn't present it in the best manner. And who's he saying? Who's he going to? Who's he talking to? And we either benefited from it, or we rejected it and remained that way, to our own detriment. The minister said, the people we say, oh, he's a hypocrite, he's an agent, no matter what the motive is, when someone comes to you and shares with you a flaw that you have displayed, don't see that you come to get into why. Why did they come up to me? Well, you didn't have the nerve to step up to me and say this. And see, I know they said it because they ain't never liked me no how. They is jealous. Maybe so. Maybe so. madly in love with you and blindly by love to see your flaws. And so, after we get through hustling and hustling, we should, after we calm down 2-3 days later, they were right. I do. And so God's agenda is not just to hide ourselves from ourselves, but to bring it up and overcome it and every obstacle to our path or our journey. So may Allah bless all of us with love, the light of understanding, and the power to throw off worry, not tomorrow, but today. I leave you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. Praise you to Allah.